Hello again. You're hearing about my story. And one of the things that I learnt in my 20s, I think, was about tithing. Giving of your income to God for Him to use it as He wills. And the person that taught me this was Brother Andrew, a Dutchman who I think became a Christian when he was in the army in Malaysia area. And he, in his 20s, went to the Bible Training Institute in Glasgow. And this would have been in probably the 50s, maybe early 50s. I learnt about tithing from him in this way. His class were divided up into small groups and sent out into the wilds of Scotland to evangelise, to spread the good news of Jesus. Each group were given £10, and that was all they had to keep them for the time that they were away. I don't know how long it was for now, I can't remember, but it could have been a week. So you can imagine £10 probably would have gone quite a long way in those days. One of the things that Brother Andrew did in his group was to tithe. So one of the first things they did was to take one of the £10 and give it away. Then, if anything was given to them to help them during their evangelistic tour, they would tithe it. One of the things they were given was a cake, and they tithed the cake. And reading this helped Dave and I to become tithers. Because when that group went back to the Bible Training Institute, they were the only group that were able to give back the £10 to the Institute, because that's how much they went home with. They had tithed and God had blessed. In the book of Malachi, God says, "Bring all of the tithes into the barn. Don't hold them back. Bring them in and see if I will not pour out such a blessing you won't be able to contain it." Pessimists are seeing the glass half empty. Optimists are seeing the glass half full. I see the glass running over because of what God said. He would bless it. During our life in Medway, before we came to Ramsgate, that tithing became quite important because we weren't a well-off couple by any means. And sometimes when you tithe, maybe there wasn't enough left to do all that was needed. Well, one day we were short of dinner because we'd tithed. And we had a next door neighbour, and she knocked on the door and said, "Goodness knows why," she said, "but I've made 2 meat pies today and I need one. Would you like one?" And we said, "Oh, thank you very much. Yes, we would." And then when we came here to Ramsgate, we had a guest house that we ran where we gave away holidays to people that were in full-time training for the ministry, and they couldn't afford a holiday, so they would come and have a holiday at our guest house, and the other people that came, They didn't know it necessarily, but they were actually paying for the other people. And Dave and I paid as well because we didn't have much credit in those days. It was more like an overdraft. And things were we'd moved out of the guest house by this time, but things were a bit tight. Actually, no, we were still in the guest house and things were a bit tight. And Dave took his packed lunch off to work, and all that was left in the house was 2 slices of bread and the bottom of a jar of mustard pickle, and it was cauliflower. Now, I love mustard pickle, so it wasn't a hardship for me to have my sandwich at lunchtime of mustard pickle because I like the taste of it. So I wasn't complaining. I did some housework, and as I was hoovering around a cupboard, I found something under the cupboard, and it was a library book. And it was a library book that had been lost for quite a while. And I had actually been to the library and paid the fine for losing a library book so that they could replace it. But they said, if you ever find this library book, bring it back and you can have the money back. So I took the library book up to the library. They refunded my money and I went shopping in Ramsgate High Street. And I was so full of joy, I stopped at a phone box. You know, those red things they used to have with phones in that you could ring people from? Well, I went into one of those and I rang somebody that I so knew would appreciate the story I had to tell. And that was Valerie Jones. So I rang her and told her all about how the Lord had provided when we needed it. And then I went home and cooked a meal for the family. And in the evening, a hamper arrived, a Christmas hamper. And it was from Val. And it had been intended, I think, for her mum. And it was full of food. And it was the most wonderful gift. And it was yet another example of the Lord pouring in such a blessing that you couldn't contain it. I'll leave you with that story. Maybe see you tomorrow.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine, heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior